My best friend doesn't deserve the cards life dealt her. I'm sorry, this is really long. I met my best friend, Mary, on our first day of school. We were 5 years old. We have been best friends for 30 years. In Mary's 35 years of being on Earth, she has experienced trials in her life that read like a tragic novel. Mary is the eldest of 3 children. Her parents split in our last year of primary school. Her mom moved the kids to the countryside away from everything and everyone she knew. We stayed in touch as pen pals. We would write to each other every few weeks, collating our news and sharing our hopes and dreams for the future. We would talk about how fabulous our lives are going to be when we grew up. At 14, Mary moved back in with her dad so that she could come back to her old life here. Before long, she became the target of her depressive alcoholic father. She would often call me in tears, her dad screaming in the background. She would ask me to come and get her, to take her out of the house and get away. Mary would stay at my house for days until her dad would apologize and she would go home, just for this all to happen again in a few weeks. Sometimes her lunch was a soup packet. She wore a pair of my old shoes for years because her dad couldn't afford to buy her a pair. We were just young teens, we didn't know how to deal with any of this. I don't think I will ever really know the true extent of what went on in those years of her life. School was terrible for Mary. She had no interest in it and she was painfully shy. She couldn't afford to go to school proms, she rarely participated in class, and her grades were average. Mary had a crush on the most popular boy in school. She gave him a letter one day with her feelings about him. The letter was posted up around the school the same day. Eventually Mary left her dad's abusive household before she finished school. Her dad disowned her after that and turned the family against her. She worked minimum paying jobs, not knowing what to do with her life. She moved cities a few times, but she never stayed in one place for long. Mary met her husband in her 20s. She became a teacher, got married, a house, they conceived a baby, and then immediately he was diagnosed with terminal cancer. He died soon after their baby was born. Her late husband's ex-wife became a problem. Years and hundreds of thousands of dollars in lawyers' fees later, Mary had to concede her part of the will. I can't begin to understand how devastating this period of her life was. She was a new mom, a new widow, and barely had a roof over her head. I don't think I had ever seen so much grief in one person. Mary went on to have 2 more children. But she never really moved on from her husband's death. Every time I saw Mary, she was tired, she was stressed, she was struggling. She was always just that little bit away from the end of her rope. 1 year ago Mary had a traumatic brain injury. Recovery will be months, they said. But I never saw her get any better. In fact, she steadily became worse. She would slur her speech, her eyes would unfocus often, she would find it hard to communicate. Months went by and she seemed to lose more cognitive function. Her text messages became harder to decipher. I last saw and heard from Mary 6 months ago. I thought she was just busy. Then my messages stopped being delivered. I gave it a few more weeks. I asked around and found out she had been admitted to hospital 6 weeks ago. I found where she was and visited her today. I was told it was bad. But I didn't know how bad she would be. When I walked in, she was facing away from me. I called out Mary, about 5 times before she turned around. When she recognized me, she cried. We cried together. She is unable to talk or communicate short of pointing and croaking. She walks with an unsteady gait and she drools when she eats or drinks. She cannot follow a conversation for too long. She will blank out and look surprised like she hadn't heard me talking. She points to her 3 teddies on her chair. They represent her 3 children she hasn't seen in almost 3 months, because she is unable to care for them anymore. Sometimes she is completely lucid for a few minutes. And I see her, the real her, the Mary the first haven't seen in years. The lights are on, she is listening intently to my story. She has expression on her face, her dry, cracked lips in a little smile. Her eyes are focused on mine and we are 5 years old again, before life became such a burden. But then it's gone again, so quick. Mary is only 35. She has been dealt such hand in life. She is such a sweet, caring, and kind soul, and she didn't deserve any of what life threw at her. I believe Mary was really, truly happy at only one point in her life, and that was ripped away from her way far too soon. I don't know what I was wanting to get from writing this up. I want to yell and shout and scream about how unfair and cruel life has been to Mary. But it's the middle of night, so this is all I can manage right now. Calm, Ned. I am sorry all this crap happened to her. I hope you or someone in her family or the hospital social worker can apply for disability for the if she hasn't done so yet. You are a good friend. This is heartbreaking. It doesn't diminish the terrible things she's suffered in life, but I think she's lucky to have a friend like you who jumped through hoops to be here in the end. This is so tragic. Thank you for sharing with us up. I hope that you guys can continue to be friends for life and she does regain some of her brain functions. I'm sorry I can't find the right words. A couple of my friends have really gone through it this year, just difficult stuff, and I can't fathom why it happens to folks. You are a special person, and, as terrible as Mary has had it, she has a beautiful friend which many people don't have. You keep seeing her when you can. Let her know you love her and just be there for her. I'm so sorry that Mary has had such a crappy life. But, I'm so glad that she has you. TBIs don't get that much worse like that, not that I've ever seen. They do get worse around the 3-month mark, that's pretty standard, but to the point that she's non-functional and hospitalized. What's going on with that? Is there some comorbidity? That sounds more like brain tumor that's progressing than a TBI from a year ago. Story 2. I couldn't be my best friend's best man, because I was in love with him and I still regret it years later. Me, Steve and John have been friends since 1st grade. Back in the day, we used to do everything together. We were always at each other's places or out with one another. We even chose the same college so we wouldn't be apart. Me and John were even closer though. I don't know why. No particular reason, I guess. We both love Steve. I think he just went home earlier all the time and left the two of us to hang out. I don't know when I fell in love with John, I just know one day I looked at him and his smile made me feel stupid. Sometimes it still does almost 30 years later. It's kinda hard not to be in love with him. He is funny, he is charming, he can make anything a good time, he likes bad rock music, and still does air guitar solos that end with him on the floor. His smile always reaches his eyes. Doesn't help that he is handsome too. I've never told anyone about my feelings, I've never tried anything with John. His friendship matters more to me than anything in the world and I'd never risk losing it. We had intimate once, but we were both very drunk and in our 20s, but he never talked about it, probably forgot it altogether by now. John had girlfriends, I had girlfriends. I don't know. Life went on, you know? He's my favorite person in the world, just existing to him makes me happy. After John asked his wife to marry him, he asked me to be his best man. And listen, I love him, I do. I just want him to be happy. I didn't want to take her place or anything crazy like that. I wasn't jealous, bitter, or whatever. But I couldn't do it. I was scared I'd say something dumb during the speech or look at him too long or I don't know, talk too much about him and not enough about his wife, and just ruin the day for them in some way. It wasn't just his day, it was her day too and she is a wonderful person. I really didn't want my feelings for him to make the most important day in their lives awkward or uncomfortable or I don't know. So when he asked me to be his best man I said no. I told him to ask Steve to do because I was really bad with speeches and public shit and Steve is better at organizing parties anyway. All true things, by the way. John said okay. Ask Steve. Steve said yes. I don't remember when it was exactly but sometime before the wedding we were hanging out and I think John got a little too drunk. He said something about how he wished I'd give a bad speech anyway. And honestly, the look he gave me that day broke my heart way more than him marrying someone else did. It was a great wedding though, John's wife looked beautiful. He cried a lot. I don't know why I'm writing this. It's been years. He is happy, I'm happy. Today was their 13th anniversary, and John's wife made some post on Facebook with the old wedding pictures and when I saw it I just cried for about an hour. I don't know. I still love him, I'm still in love with him. I think I'll always be. I'm also glad he is happy. I know he's probably over the fact that I wasn't his best man, I know it never even crosses his mind anymore, but every time I remember the look he gave me, I think about how I wish I could have been it for him. Story 3. The best revenge for a cheating ex. It all started with a simple text message I stumbled upon one fateful evening. Little did I know that this seemingly innocuous discovery would lead to a life-altering journey filled with betrayal, heartbreak, and, ultimately, redemption. I'm Jack, a dedicated father, and a loving husband of nearly 15 years. My wife, Lisa, had been my high school sweetheart, and I believed we were destined to grow old together. We had built a seemingly idyllic life together in our quiet suburban neighborhood, complete with 2 beautiful children. I was a hard-working man who had built a successful career to provide for my family. I prioritized Lisa's needs and our children's well-being above all else. Our life was like a fairy tale, or so I thought. The unraveling began when I borrowed Lisa's phone to check something on the internet and stumbled upon messages from an unknown number. Those messages unveiled a shocking affair that Lisa had been having with a co-worker, Mark. My heart shattered into a million pieces as I read through the heartbreaking conversations. I confronted Lisa, and she admitted to the affair with Mark. She confessed that it had been going on for over a year, and she was deeply in love with her affair partner. She wanted a divorce and was planning to move in with him. The world as I knew it crumbled around me, and I was left to pick up the pieces. As I wrestled with the pain of betrayal, I knew that I had to remain strong for the sake of my children. I agreed to the divorce, but I also began plotting my own form of revenge. It wasn't about petty acts of vengeance, it was about finding a way to rebuild my life and protect my children from the chaos of a broken family. I resolved to live my best life and show Lisa and Mark what they had lost. I sought therapy to help me cope with the emotional trauma, secured legal counsel to ensure a fair settlement, and focused on my physical and mental well-being. Hitting the gym, pursuing my long-neglected hobbies, and nurturing my friendships became my therapy. Time passed, and I found a renewed sense of purpose and self-worth. I dedicated myself to being the best father I could be, showering my children with love and support. My stability stood in stark contrast to the turbulent relationship Lisa and Mark had embarked upon. As the divorce proceedings unfolded, Lisa and Mark's relationship started to crumble. The initial excitement of their affair faded, and they faced their own set of challenges and insecurities. Meanwhile, I thrived, becoming a successful entrepreneur and building a fulfilling life for myself. One day, Lisa called me, distraught. She expressed regret for her actions, realizing that the grass wasn't greener on the other side. Her relationship with Mark had soured, and she was struggling with the consequences of her choices. I listened with empathy but remained resolute in my decision to move forward with the divorce. The years passed, and my life continued to improve. I found new love, built a happy, healthy relationship, and raised my children with love and care. Lisa and Mark, on the other hand, struggled to make their relationship work and faced numerous challenges. It seemed that the consequences of their actions had finally caught up with them. In the end, my best revenge wasn't some elaborate scheme to destroy Lisa and Mark, it was my ability to rebuild my life, find happiness, and provide a stable and loving environment for my children. Living well truly is the best revenge, and I had proven that sometimes, the best way to get back at those who have wronged you is by becoming a better version of yourself. Comment. At first I thought this clearly looks like something written by ChatGPT, but then I realized I had read this exact same story word for word on Reddit a long time ago and I'm cringing hard. I see you're not getting that much attention over here sadly. Perhaps try some other subs for that fake validation and karma. If they are not married, ask your ex when she is getting married. If she says she does not know, tell her that you loved her enough to marry her. Does her partner love her that much? Basically pour gas on the fire of her relationship insecurities. You are strong to have done that. It takes emotional stability and strength to do what you have done. Congrats. The best revenge is none. Show her the life she's missing out on and focus on yourself. You will get there, man.